Okay, everybody, we're back for the Diftorious Show. We have lots to talk about today. I'm Creatorious Rex. Scott is here with me today. Hey, Scott.
How's it going?
It's going really well. This is our third show,
Right.
talking about the news of the week. This has been really fun. We've got other shows that we do sort of in between. So hopefully it's a lot of really good stuff for people to keep up what's going on in the space. And what are you working on this week?
Lots of stuff. I was looking at the Mekaverse stuff, so I'm watching that closely. I was in there early for that. And the Coinbase thing is something else that I'm really curious to see how it goes. Yeah. And then helping Rally out with their platform. That's been my week so far.
Yeah. Yep, and I'm actually working on an NFT project, which most people don't know. But if you're watching here, our dozens of viewers will now know this secret inside scoop that we're working on something, but not really ready to talk about it yet. So people look out. We'll do it here. We'll do it a couple other places where we'll do an announcement. Pretty cool novel, but wow, it takes a lot of time. And and I was thinking about this too. What we're going to do as part of this process is we're going to actually walk everyone through what we're going through so that people can maybe get an inside view of what at least one format of rolling out an NFT project looks like. And I think we're going to have the opportunity to do several of these. And so people get different lenses in it. And that really fits with what we want to do. And we want to create a space where people can gather information, they can contribute, they can learn by doing, they can learn by interacting with people. And this is one of the things that we're doing here is we're talking about the news of the week, because it's always useful to have that context, and we don't have enough time to go through all of it because there's so much things going on right now. But we are going to go to our top story of the week, and that is Coinbase announces that it will launch a marketplace, and it is taking email addresses to announce people when it comes out, and presumably not everybody will be able to get in because it's a waiting list. And I saw today on Twitter that there are over 1.3 million people have already signed up. So if you are, I thought I was pretty far behind because I think I've got two different accounts that I signed up with. I've got like 12,000 and 13,000. I guess I'm feeling pretty good being in the top 1%. I thought that might not be soon enough, and maybe it will be. I don't know. But I'm definitely interested in that. But someone said that is, I had never actually looked at this before. There's more people who've signed up for the Coinbase NFT Marketplace or early access than are all the wallets on OpenSea. Pretty amazing.
I heard that as well. Yeah. I'm curious about those numbers, if that's accurate. It is wild. I have talked to, just normal people, folks on the street that are hearing about the NFT thing and haven't touched OpenSea. But Coinbase is where they have sort of dipped their toe into crypto. So it makes sense that you would, you get a much broader audience that way.
Okay. So one of the things I was looking at, crypto Twitter, NFT Twitter, I was expecting, maybe NFT Twitter's not quite as zealous about these things as crypto Twitter, but I was expecting to see more hate about Coinbase getting this, because there's a lot of folks who've been around for a while who aren't really Coinbase fans. But for the most part, it seemed like, the more the merrier. It'll be great to get normies in. It'll be great to give people exposure to something really novel they can do with cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I got the same vibe. In general, my take along the whole, my exposure to NFTs, that crowd has been more sort of welcoming than when I first got into crypto. That seemed a little bit more hardcore. And maybe that's because you have, I don't know, I'm speculating now, but maybe that's because you have a lot of creative folks involved, and the whole community building aspect naturally wants, you want to welcome people in, because the more people in the community, the more they're supporting a project, and that's a good thing. So, I mean, it makes sense that if you were supporting a project and Coinbase started letting people, open a marketplace, then there might be more people wanting Bored Apes. And if you own a Bored Ape, that's great, or any NFT for that matter. So I think it's good. I think it's, I think NFTs are already legitimate, but I think it legitimizes the concept in a lot of people's eyes that might have thought that it was it's like we've seen with crypto over the last 6 to 12 months, where people are I hear less of the, oh, that's fake money talk. And I hear
Right.
more about like, oh, should I be thinking about that? I get more questions like that than I used to. Um,
Well, it's interesting
yeah.
too. It's like we think about, I'll probably get in trouble with some folks for saying this, but you think about sort of, we've got Bitcoin, which I think there was there seemed early on, I won't say that it wasn't welcoming, but there was more of a expectation that people be true believers, and just like in some of the core tenets of Bitcoin. And when we moved to Ethereum, it's not that those people weren't as hardcore, but they were willing to be maybe a little more flexible on some of the elements. And you certainly see that with uh, some of the non-Ethereum layer ones, the layer ones that came after Ethereum, so they even, sort of further away from that. And it's like, but Ethereum is all about just sort of new innovation. It's not about security above all else, decentralization above all else. And so that seems to be a little bit more. And most of this is happening on either Ethereum or some of these other chains that came afterwards, or side chains. We've got some side chains, layer twos. So it might be that as you get further away from the original group, it just becomes more welcoming. And NFTs seem to be the people within those chains that are the most interested in doing new stuff, as opposed to really just focusing on the basics that were the foundation.
Yeah. It's really interesting how these different kind of almost like little subcultures emerge out of this stuff, and not even little anymore. But it reminds me a lot of music, because I guess that's just the experience I had that I'm drawing to. But if you were in the punk scene and you were in a very kind of like hardcore punk band, there were certain sort of tenets that you people tended to believe and follow, and that if you weren't aligned with those, sometimes the notes that are the closest together sound the worst, but if you get a little far apart, then people can agree with the concept. But when something's close, it butts up against them. I know there's lots of Bitcoin folks that have lots of negative things to say about Ethereum. Bitcoin enthusiasts and believers who believe in philosophically, and I don't know. It's interesting. I think whenever you get that deep into something, that tends to happen, but it's not necessarily good for the whole ecosystem, in my experience.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. And I would just say that the way I'm thinking about it is, it's sort of just top of funnel. It's like introducing new people. It's a whole new group. I absolutely assume Robinhood is next in this space, in terms of these broad-based solutions. And it's going to put, I think, pressure on the like OpenSea is going to be really focused on some of these places that have huge user bases and lots of crypto. And then all the other ones many of them who've been around longer than OpenSea, they're going to have to really focus on what's their niche, or they're going to have to get big fast.
Yeah. I think the thing I keep coming back to is that the barrier to entry is tricky for an average user to figure out how to get onto OpenSea, because they have to set up their MetaMask. They have to figure out how to get coins to MetaMask. They have to get comfortable with the idea of connecting a wallet to a third-party site. Once you do that, though, and realize the beauty of how quickly you can connect to different sites, and you start to see the potential of what that means, it makes me wonder if Coinbase is going to start eating they've got, like you said, they've got this huge funnel and they're bringing in new people all the time. If they start going the route of having a extension and then connecting to allowing people to do that you're sort of grooming folks into it in a more comfortable way than jumping into MetaMask, which I think in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've had about 15 to 20 friends call me and have me walk them through a setup for MetaMask so they could get
such a
NFTs.
common experience among people now, is like jumping on board. So was just talking to Dandelion about that earlier today in a live stream. So let's think about this for a second. The other thing that occurred to me was that there's a lot of people who actually have their own custodial wallets who also have Coinbase accounts, because that just it's a fairly convenient way these days, if you're okay with KYC and all these other things, to get money in and out of the chains.
Yeah.
In fact, probably the easiest way. I'm sure someone will contest that, but I just know a lot of people do that. So and that means they're holding a little bit in Coinbase, maybe a lot. Maybe that's a place where that's their bank, and they do their fund in their custodial wallet. So I just have a feeling that a lot of the people who are also have custodial wallets are also going to be trading on Coinbase if there's liquidity there, which I have to assume there's going to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And my experience has been, the more you do this, the more wallets of all sorts you accumulate in different places. And you start like, oh, well, I'll buy NFTs from this wallet now, I guess. And it might just be me, but my assumption is that, yes, folks might already have their MetaMask and are buying NFTs on OpenSea. And then when Coinbase comes out, they just start buying NFTs in both spots. I still think there's a lot of coin out there that's just sitting around. And there's
waiting for something to do.
I think that's a big part of why NFTs are so massively successful right now, is like, we've been sitting on these coins with absolutely nothing to do. There's lots of young people that made a lot of coins, and now you're giving them another way to use them, and it's a really interesting way.
So, I think it's amazing. So we've got the OpenSea being, I would say, the first to scale. So they've got liquidity, and there's a big incentive. Not to say that there aren't things going on in Solana, because there are. Flow, Wax. There are things. Cardano just has had a couple recently. So there's obviously some liquidity there as well. There's the most liquidity right now from a buyer and seller standpoint in Ethereum, and specifically on OpenSea. So that was the first one to scale. It's really hard when you get that liquidity for anybody else to then get it, because the sellers have a disincentive, because they're like, oh, not enough buyers are here. So how's that gonna do for my mint? And then the buyers like, do I really want to learn another thing? Or they don't know, or you have to raise awareness. And then am I comfortable going to 5 different sites? What does that look like? So I've been telling people, it's like, there'll be a lot of niches. It's going to be hard every week that goes by, it's harder to knock off OpenSea. But if you come with millions of users that already have money, and you create an easy way for them to do it, all of a sudden I'm thinking sellers are like, oh, geez, I could scoop up some of that Coinbase money. There's got to be collectors there. And all I'm asking my existing collectors to do is use their Coinbase wallet or set up a Coinbase wallet. So in any event, I just think that this is the orthogonal play that comes in. I'm sure Facebook is thinking about this. Maybe Twitter, although I think it's outside of what their strategy would be. But I could see the Cash App, Square, or something doing that. I could even see PayPal doing it, but I think PayPal will just try to do transactions.
Yeah, I gotta imagine like all these companies have someone somewhere talking about NFTs in the company saying, we got to get on this. Like it just, if I was working at Starbucks right now, I would be like, forget gift cards. We need to figure out how to make NFTs gift cards. There's so much more. There's all these things that exist right now that don't work very well that could be solved with NFTs. And we're looking at them we talked about this last couple episodes, I think. The utility cases we're looking at right now are still really narrow, and some of them are fantastic, but we haven't touched it yet. And I think, it starts to make a lot of sense with some of these other companies. And I almost regret saying that, because I feel like it takes the magic. I always get excited about these new platforms. Like, we're going to find this amazing new form of storytelling or art or what have you. And then it settles into use cases that are very like, oh, okay, that's how we use the internet now.
All right.
But
So
it's still great.
no, it
Still
actually, I mean, this is a good segue because our second story today is around Viacom and the deal that they did with Recur, the plans to roll out an NFT marketplace for some of their properties. They have SpongeBob, a lot of different properties that are beloved by the masses. And this again is a different play. They're not looking for maximum reach. And I think it's in some ways it's like the way Vive has come out to market, although they're like a marketplace place for branded drops or branded mints, where we have this next step of like, oh, I'll just have my own right on my website, just like you used. Remember when the early days of the internet and the web, we went somewhere to set up our store. And then eventually, like Yahoo was one of the first, but they weren't the first. But they basically said, "Oh no, you just put it on your website. We'll give you the tools for you to do it." So it was. I used to go to a shopping mall online, and I would get everything there, and then I could do it on my site. Now you do it there, plus Amazon, plus these other places. But it seems to be like that.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, I think, to see how all the value and the numbers we're seeing associated with some of these projects, and as other things roll into them, is that going to be their expectation, or are these things going to become novelty items that don't have tremendous value? They're just a new mechanism to put a prize in a Cracker Jack box, so a kid that watches SpongeBob can pick up a SpongeBob NFT. It doesn't necessarily have value, but for a kid, it's just a fun collectible. Is that going to be validated on, as we start adding all these chains and different things, like what makes an NFT an NFT? Like, is it just because we say it's an NFT? There's lots of interesting stuff, I think, that's needs to get figured out. That's it's kind of
okay.
So uncertainty,
right? So I like this breakdown of thinking of it as this is just the way commerce evolved on Web 1. So we had marketplaces because they were the only ones who knew actually how to do the transactions. It was not easy we didn't have Stripe where you could just integrate it in the afternoon and have or Shopify and have everything set up from a financing standpoint. We didn't have people that had already built shopping carts and knew how that was doing. So you actually you hosted somewhere else if you wanted to sell something, and then they created a way for you to put that on your website, and then they created things specifically for that you could build in. And I think that's the way this looks like it's evolving. I'm having these conversations with Dandelion about the Archipelago project. That's specifically an OpenSea competitor marketplace for art blocks. However, what a lot of people don't know is there's two parts to it. There's a front end and a back end. So the whole front end and back end, they're building for art blocks because they're part of that community, and there's some really specific use cases that they want to enable for that community. But the back end is designed to work with is open source. It's designed to work with any front end. And so if Cryptodes wanted to just put it on their website, they could use the back end, which is proven. It's got the right type of contracts for them already set up. They just put a great user interface on it. So, again, we're seeing the same. I think Recur is trying to do some similar types of things from maybe not open source, but for profit standpoint. So this seems logical to me.
Yeah. I think we're going to see it manifest in lots of different ways, from marketplaces to how artists mint to how anyone mints to, what content becomes an NFT.
Right.
A wallet becomes a music player, and MP3, whatever music is formatted as an NFT. And by having that, there's all sorts of interesting things when we start to get into that level of it. But
well, a lot of people don't know that you're the PM for Rally's NFT Marketplace. So again, this is not necessarily a general purpose marketplace. It's an NFT marketplace for Rally coin creators, and we're doing this weekly interview with Dandelion around Archipelago so that people can see like what's that process of building them.
Yep.
Maybe we need to do that with you as well,
Mhm.
because you've sort of witnessed this from the start through where we are now. Why don't you tell people a little bit about that? Maybe we can set aside.
Sure.
You probably should do a full episode on this, but why don't you just tell them a little bit about that, because it sort of fits into this category.
Yeah. So Rally has a coin, and they also enable creators to have their own coin that is backed by Rally, and the creator coins are on a side chain. So Rally has a side chain marketplace for NFTs, and creators can mint NFTs on that platform. And it's also a marketplace. So minting and marketplace rolled into one. You can mint buy it now. You can mint auctions, open editions. You can mint directly to your wallet, so you can distribute your NFTs how you see fit. And it's up, it's live. People are using it. It's doing pretty well from my observations for how quiet we've been about it. Rally hasn't really officially kind of promoted it yet. It's really interesting to see how sidechain, how it's perceived, how creators think of NFTs on the sidechain versus mainnet. Rally has said that they want to enable bridge out at some point, so you can bridge those NFTs to mainnet. You can currently bridge Rally to in and out, and then to creator coin, and creator coins back to Rally, and so on. So there are ways to get back and forth with the coins. My observation has been that with each of these use cases, you can't just assume that instead of trying to make the sidechain like mainnet, use the sidechain for what it's good at. Rally's sidechain has no fees, so that's pretty fantastic. You can mint, you can sell, trade without paying gas. That's a huge deal. So if you're a creator and you wanted to do, for example, I'm also a creator on Rally's network. The way I've thought about it is, if I wanted to mint a project on mainnet, I could almost mint pre-sale stuff on Rally. And for my hardcore fans that are on Rally, I could say, hey, if you get these pre-sale NFTs, when I do a mainnet project, you'll be able to get in on the pre-sale.
Right.
So there's things like that, I think, that creators can think about. Instead of thinking about these things as like which chain is best, I think it's really figuring out which thing is the best for a specific situation. I think for some creators, a side chain is ideal, especially Rallies, because it allows people to purchase coins with a credit card or bridge in Rally. So it's easy for newbies to get in, or experts. And then this no fee thing makes it super affordable to make mistakes and to move things around and see what's going on.
So we should tell people that, so in case they don't know, Rally is RLY. It's an ERC20, and then it's kind of like the Squarespace for creating a social token. It allows these creators. It's not just anybody can do it. There's a review process and everything, but there's, I think, 225 or so creators that have made coins up to this point, and they bring their own community in, and largely that community interacts with that creator within Rally with those coins, because there's ways for them to do that, also through Discord, and there are other affordances that they do that. But it's sort of similar to the Coinbase situation. We've got a lot of people who have coins, and some of them are spending them to interact or to tip or to do these other type of social interactions with the creators. But a lot of them have coins that they haven't spent yet. And so you're just giving them another way to like show affinity for, or to get something really unique that you couldn't buy at the merch shop. You can only get it if you're part of this community that also holds the coin. So I really like that aspect that we've overlaid in this space, an NFT marketplace, onto a coin economy, and allowed when you go in as a user, you can sort of look at your wallet, what NFTs you have. You can look at your wallet, what coins you have. You can interact in all these different ways.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's like you said, comparing it to Coinbase, I think is accurate. But instead of, Coinbase having all these coins and all these people with wallets holding coins, Rally has all these creators with massive audiences, and you're sort of like, when everyone keeps dumping these people in together and they start mixing up, that's when you're going to start to see this, like, creators able to actually sell their content or monetize their content in a way that provides utility and value to the person purchasing the content.
That's right.
And in a way that hasn't, a lot of these platforms that exist for creators now are not great. You know, I have to think of, if I go on, and no disrespect to Patreon, because I think what they're doing is fantastic for creators, but it's sort of all tied into this subscription model where I have to keep coming up with things to make the subscription worthwhile. And if I'm spending more time to figure out how to make it valuable and less time on the content, that's just hard to sustain, right?
Absolutely.
But with NFTs, there's just some different creative stuff you can start to do. I think that's, and I assume someone at Patreon's got to be thinking about this as well.
Oh yeah, exactly. That would make total sense.
And at every other content platform, I mean, YouTube, Twitch, they all have to be considering this. And if they haven't,
it is hard. If you're not crypto native, though, I think it takes a while to get to that point.
It does. Yes. And if you're a large company, it's like there's a certain level of risk aversion when it comes to something that's being regulated or not, or it's just, I could see how a large organization could be scared of this stuff because of the climate. So,
okay,
good
folks,
for everyone else.
Yeah, I should just say, full disclosure. I mean, Scott mentioned this. He works for Rally.
Yes,
he's a creator on that. I've had some. I've done some creator work there. I'm also on Patreon, so I'm happy to support all these folks. And it's not a Rally commercial, although we probably will do a separate section, because I think we should talk about all the different considerations you have when you go into building a marketplace. I think people would be really fascinated.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because Rally's made some different decisions, I think, than some of the people have done on mainnet. Okay, so we'll come back to that, but the moral of the story here is that I generally believe that Coinbase coming in is good. It's going to expose more people. It's going to create more opportunities for artists. It's going to create more opportunities for collectors to get engaged with artists, get engaged with new communities. To me, that's really positive, because I want more people exposed to Web3, the metaverse, to all the different things that are happening. And it's going to take someone like Coinbase, Robinhood, to bring people in, to make it an easier on-ramp, maybe with non-custodial wallets to start, just because it's going to be more like a web app. And then some portion of those are going to come over and get custodial wallets, and they're going to sort of fully embrace what's going on, which I think is really the revolution, of which NFTs are a significant lubricant.
Yes. I agree. I think it's good. Yeah.
Okay. So we talked a lot about marketplaces. It's so funny that it's like all these things happen in 1 week, because we weren't really talking about marketplace a couple of weeks. We were talking about like how much was going on, but
I feel like every week is like, it's like more, there's so much happening right now. It is absolutely crazy.
Absolutely. Okay. So the other thing we have to talk about is Meka. Mekaverse.
Yes.
Had their amazing raffle, which frustrated Benny. I tried, in case anyone's wondering, I did try to figure out how to get in the raffle. I was having a problem with MetaMask. I could not get in. Several hours. I had 20 minutes set aside to do it. I couldn't do it, and then I couldn't get back in time. I did not get in the raffle. I think you had it was a very small chance to get in, maybe 1 in 20, something like that. I don't know how many. I don't know if they revealed those numbers, but if you just figured out how many you could mint and you looked at how many were in their Discord server, not a lot. But we can talk about Discord server numbers. But so they had a tremendous drop, right? So they did the raffle. People were excited. They came out. Floor immediately went to like 3.5. And then I think the mint price was 0.04. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Actually, I need to double check that. But in that before the reveal, it got up crazy high at one point.
Yeah, and then it hit like 6, and then
I think it was around 6.75 right before the reveal, and then like you said, the reveal came and it dropped.
Right.
And then it kind of came. It maybe got back up to 4 or something, and then I'm not going to steal your thunder. You can say what
No,
happens
no, go
next.
for it. I mean, talk about however you want. I like. By the way, when I switch away to a different tab, do I freeze?
Oh,
It
maybe
looks like
that
I
is
do.
the cause. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have to bring up another browser window. But go ahead. Like, I'm really interested in like just telling people what happened when it started.
Yeah. So who was it? Basically, the bottom line is there's accusations about some sort of something shady going on, and a wallet. There was a wallet that had purchased some unrevealed NFTs, and when they revealed, one was legendary and a few others were extremely rare.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's suspicious. Not
Okay. So
impossible,
yeah,
I guess, but
so that's the other thing.
suspicious,
So
right?
it seemed like there was a lot of excitement
Mhm.
for I don't like it's hard to remember what this was for a couple days.
Yeah, it was
And
getting a lot of hype.
well, geez, it was like these breathless articles from the media. They're like, this is the most amazing thing ever. They have 200,000 Discord users, which seems kind of strange to me.
Yeah, mm, I don't trust those numbers. I mean, I'm not saying it's not true, but there's ways. I don't know. I don't want to make any accusations, but there's ways to acquire users, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything good or bad. I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know.
So the floor price right now is 2.95. There's been
Mhm.
35,000 traded. That's the volume, the secondary. Pretty significant, very fast.
Mhm.
And so then the issue here is that we also are starting to see what looks like maybe wash trading against some of those rares. Somebody was reporting it was 200, 200 ETH bid on a specific one that was one of 7, I think. And then it seemed like maybe it was actually only 100, or maybe there was a bid withdrawn or something like that. But at least 100. But then was looking at this, and I think it was Nate Roth or somebody who actually put it up and said, "Oh, wait a second, the same person owns these wallets," because you could see that something that they had in one wallet was actually it was the profile pic of another wallet which was unnamed, something like that. It was very interesting, and they put it
Mm.
up and they said, "Oh well, this isn't a real offer," because the question that I saw originally was, there's an offer here for 200 ETH. Would you sell for one of the seven most rare Mekas? And so there was some back and forth. Yes, hell yes. And then there was someone saying, well, it's not a real thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm just going to say, I haven't researched this thoroughly, so I don't want to make any assumptions that aren't based by real data, because I think that there's a huge problem with that. There's clearly stuff that looks suspicious.
Yeah.
And when you mix a little bit of mystery with lots of transparency, I think it creates this perfect storm of like, why is that there? And why did that look like that? And it's easy to make assumptions. Now, it could be that the things people are saying are absolutely correct. There's some foul play going on, or it could just be just not unawareness on the part of whoever was doing that it was even something bad, or that the creators weren't more transparent.
Well, it's not necessarily true that even if there are some nefarious things going on, that the creators are
a
involved.
part of it at all. Yeah,
It
exactly.
just could be some whales in there trying to do a pump. We've seen this before. Wash trading. We've seen it to take numbers down because whales want to get in at a lower price, and so they do wash trading. Everyone's like, well, why would they ever do that? It's like, oh, because then they go in and sweep the floor, and they know that 2 weeks later they're going to have a nice payday. But that can happen without the complicity of the
Absolutely.
the founders.
Absolutely. There's evident. One of the accusations is that because someone was buying the ones that weren't revealed yet, and the ones that this wallet bought that weren't revealed ended up revealing to being extremely rare, and the odds of that happening are not, it's crazy for that to have randomly happened. But then there's I think it brings up some of the other sort of stepping back from it. Some of the other stuff I've read is that like this just calls for more a better means of distributing these kinds of NFTs, these sorts of projects, so that everyone knows it's fair, so that and that makes sense. And I think that's a good thing. And we're all learning here. So whether we're learning that someone was up to no good, or whether we're learning that someone just ought to have done a better job explaining why they were doing what they were doing, so there wasn't an opportunity for people to misunderstand. Either way, I think that's a good thing, that if we're starting to come up with ways to do that and make it fair and make it visible. That's the whole thing with all this, right?
So there's this discussion about most of the discussion that's happened has been in the secondary market. What I haven't heard as many people talk about is whether the raffle was a good idea before the mint purchase. Because the raffle, if you talk about transparency, it's one thing if you put a contract on the chain, you say it's live, and then what happens. So you could still have the secondary problems with people with inside information, pre-reveal, going and sniping some things, but they still have to buy it. They still have to find a willing seller. They have to buy it. And so that's a different type of thing than if you're doing a raffle.
Yep.
I mean, maybe I didn't look at the contract. So it might be that there's something in the raffle that made that transparent, that there wasn't any way that they could manipulate that. But it's not minting. And so, was that a mechanism potentially that is a good idea? I'm not saying there was anything untoward about it, because they were trying to help people not have to pay the gas wars, the usury gas wars.
Sure.
But that's the other thing we say. Anytime we do these things, is that going to be a fair thing? Because even when we do like mint passes and pre-mints and stuff like that, it's always very clear. But that raffle process seemed really opaque to me.
Yeah. And that brings up a whole thing, right? Like, the raffle does sound like a fantastic idea to how to combat gas wars. And then my other thought goes to, like, if you were going to do something nefarious, why wouldn't you do it in the raffle and not do it afterwards, so someone could? So I don't know. It makes me wonder if some of the stuff is just missteps and other bad actors that are getting rolled up into something that's, again, I haven't looked at it closely enough.
Well, I guess we'll see, right? I mean, the beauty of this is a lot of these things are being made up as they go along. People are trying new things. The experiments are largely in the open, so they can be evaluated in real time. And then we can see, like, if the Mekaverse founders just start nailing all of the items in their roadmap, they'll I don't know that they've lost the trust of their holders anyway, but they'll cement the trust with them, and they'll maybe rebuild the trust with the people who are skeptical right now.
Yeah, I think that would go a really long way towards, I mean, this could end up being the best thing that happened to them, that if they can continue to build on their roadmap, like you said, and execute, people realize, like, oh, these guys are legit. Stuff goes, like, I've yet to see one of these projects go smooth ever.
Always something.
Except the quiet ones that no one's buying until later.
Yes.
Gary V's project, when it launched and gas was crazy and there was all this stuff happening. And look at it now, like
the complexity of what he did with the Dutch auction.
Mm-hmm.
In retrospect, it seemed kind of difficult, and there were issues with the website. Not just it got pushed back like 5 days for launch, maybe 6 days, but also just the website would get overloaded. You try to buy things, you'd have double buys, you'd have false buy, or you'd have what seemed like false losses of things. But for the most part, actually, in retrospect, worked pretty good.
Exactly. I mean, that's just, and we're learning, right? Like you said, this is all still super early. The fact that his thing was over 3 days, and there was NFT. To think of it now, and this was 5 months ago, there were VFriends sitting at the floor for days.
Oh, that's right. The first 2 rounds at 0.5. Yeah. First 2 days. By day 4, they were going quickly at the end.
Yes.
But yeah,
when it got down to the end, I was like, oh, this is going fast. I was just trying to buy as many cores as I could. When it got down to like 500 or maybe even less, they were gone. They went really quick at that point, but they had been sitting there for a while. And then it was the gift goats. Anyway, everything has changed since then, but it's crazy to think that stuff was just out there.
It's crazy. I think the gift goats were basically at one point around 12 grand. Just because it happened that before the real pump came, and right after there was the Ethereum crash. But you could actually get them at a low price and low gas because it was after everyone had dumped all their ETH. So that was interesting. Okay, so just one other thing about Meka, though. What struck me is that there's this other story about the Twitter threads. And those Twitter threads are largely engaged by what I would consider to be, maybe they're the OGs, maybe they're not, but they're the people who are very active collectors and active talkers about the space. So it seems like Meka either never had the support of the paragons of crypto Twitter. They probably wouldn't even like me to say that, but the big influencers in crypto Twitter never really had them on board. Maybe that's not right. I didn't see any of them like really like pushing this. Maybe they would talk about it, but it wasn't like this is going to be amazing. And they seem to have lost that crew immediately.
Yeah, I noticed that there was a lot of I just kept reading some like not even from those folks, but in communities across Discord, kind of like, oh well, they don't even look that cool. And it was hard for me to tell if that was a byproduct of how much hype they had and how high they were priced pre-reveal, and people were just sort of salty because they didn't get in on it, or if that was something else.
It might be. So first of all, I started seeing these things before there was this issue of is there something nefarious going on here, which has been the story today. But there was the item where, I didn't know that the Mekaverse was a find the difference game between two, and then they would show two side by side, and there would be this one minor little difference over in the corner. And then I saw another one, someone say, yeah, here's their next mint. It was 4 Bored Apes, which is the exact same Bored Ape in black and white, but they each had different color eyes. And they say, look at these I just minted from Mekaverse 2.0. So there was already this, there was something there that was going on with the art, and I would say that the 200,000 Discord community.
Yeah, there's something strange there.
It just went so fast. So it went within a couple of days. It's just like, how does this? There's a lot of froth in this industry, but how did everyone?
Well, that's just it. Yeah, and I want to make sure that I said something about that earlier. I'm not saying that those guys had anything to do with that, because who knows who could have just gone in. The one thing about this space is anyone can buy a bunch and then try and pump the project.
Yes.
Even if they had nothing to do with it. So who knows if someone else set up a farm to create Discord accounts to try and hype it up. Like once
you know there's going to be a raffle, and if you maybe get some advantage on the raffle or something like that, or you might just say, I'm going to set up 10 wallets, and each of those wallets, and like if invites, I don't know if this was, so people can correct me, but if invites is often one of if you get more people invited in, you say, oh geez, if I was able to get like 100, 200 people in here. I'd probably get on top of the list. And then, so I'm going to set up 12 lot wallets. I'm going to get a click farm to come in, set these things up. And then they see, oh, wait a second, that's not enough. So they're like, just go back to click farm. And all of a sudden you need 3,000 in order to be at the top of that list. So yeah, that's how a third party could actually really manipulate a project. Easily.
Totally. And that could be what's going on with Coinbase right now too. Like, cause I know they were doing something that if you invited people, you got higher on the list or.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so who knows?
Oh yeah, that's
we know that being early is a big deal in this space.
Yeah, I could be going backwards. I didn't even thought about that because I just put out like one tweet. I've got this thing. I was like 12,000. Okay, I think I'm okay with that. But now it's like I could be 25,000 now because other people could have jumped ahead of me.
That's right. Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's an interesting space that when you think of how much of this stuff is community based, and so what people say about one another and the support of other projects is a very big deal.
Yes, it is.
So that can be pretty devastating if you have respected people in the space having negative things to say. Yeah, it's scary. I get really freaked out by the way social media works. It's so easy for accusations to gain momentum and traction. It's concerning this early on for projects. Like, I don't know, it's hard to tell what's real. And you're already, this space already takes so much, like, it's already risky as hell, right? You're already putting lots of like, oh, should I trust this project? Is this like, what are they about? And then when you have that stuff flying around, it gets really, I don't know, it's just bad vibes.
Yeah, it is.
But I do fundamentally believe that if you can, and it's the thing that Vaynerchuk talks about all the time, is like, just do the work. Like, who cares what anyone says? Do the work. And if you're really in it for the right reasons, people are going to see that. And
and there were a couple people like beforehand that were sort of calling some things out, saying, hey, this looks a little strange, but there weren't a lot. It seems to be more now. But I will say I just looked at Crypto Slam. They are down 50% in terms of their 24-hour sales yesterday to today. And I don't think that is because of volume. I think it's just because the price cratered. See if I can pull that up.
Well, ETH also pumped today a little bit too, right? So
yes,
that could be. I'm still watching that close to see how days like this affect NFT pricing.
Yeah, there must be an arbitrage there, but maybe not always. It's there's some stickiness, mostly because of the way OpenSea works. And like, you have to know that the ETH changed a significant amount. Then you have to go in, you have to change what your list price is. And I think,
but
you
you have
to cancel it. There's cost to that. So
absolutely. I'm speaking about myself only and no one else, but I'd be curious to see if anyone else has had this experience. I've noticed that as soon as I started getting into NFTs and paying for NFTs in ETH, I don't think about the price of ETH often when I buy NFTs anymore. It doesn't matter to me that if ETH hit 4,000 a day and was at 3,000 a couple of weeks ago or whenever it last was. I just look at, this is worth this much, and that's what I'm paying for it because that's the currency I'm paying it in. Like, when I'm in another country using their currency, I'm not thinking about the exchange rate today versus yesterday when I swapped my US dollars for pounds or whatever.
I think that's right. The longer you're in, and it's almost like thinking, like, if you're speaking another language, are you thinking in that language, or are you trying to real-time translation? I think that's important. I was talking to someone about hiring. And by the way, if anybody watches this, if you're looking to do something in this space, we are hiring marketing, writing jobs, a couple other things. So reach out to me on the Twitter. But I was talking to him, and he wanted to be paid in ETH, which I think is fine. But we're talking about maybe a slightly longer term contract, and I'm like, geez, I might not have all the ETH I need to pay for this 2 months from now if we get a big pump. Like Raoul Paul's really pushing this idea of ETH at 10,000. I might be taking on an obligation I can't fulfill because I'm going to have to put fiat in maybe to cover part of that.
I hear you. That's yeah.
So it could be that I agree to something and then I'm like have to triple the cost. Or triple my costs like for next month, and I'm doing this. So it's hard to do these long-term contracts. It's
it's almost like you have to stake the ETH ahead of time somewhere so that you can't lock it up in a vault or something so you can't.
And I would be more than happy to stake or to like buy a lot of ETH right now, but it's always a balance. Like, particularly when you have a business, you've got most of the things I have to pay for in fiat. Most people are paying me. If they are paying me in things, it's in fiat. So there's all this translation.
Yeah. I got 2 things on that I want to say.
Cool.
One, when Rally, so a year ago tomorrow, actually, Rally coin launched. And we had, so I was working with Rally at the time. We had some community folks that we offered to pay in Rally to help us out who were getting Rally when it was priced at like cents.
Yeah, single digit cents.
And they were paid in Rally. They weren't paid in, or a combination of the two. And Rally at one point last year got up to $1.50. So, like, some of these people were able to it's awesome. Like people that supported the project early on, and helped out were able to benefit from that.
And really since February, I think the lowest it's been is like 31. So most of those people who were very early would have been at least a 5x. In terms of a fiat translation, what they originally agreed to do it, and some of them did much better than that.
It was wild.
Right now I think it's probably in the mid 50s. It's hard to tell like day to day. I couldn't tell you, but it was 55 I think yesterday, 55 cents. It's good to be early. That was
one thing.
It's good to be early on things that actually succeed. It's not good to be early on things that don't succeed. And I've been involved in a couple NFT projects that being early really wasn't a benefit. It was all cost, as well. No matter what. Hey, what are you buying? What have you bought recently? What's in your wallet newly?
Oh wow, yeah. You know what I got that I really dug was these. So I'm a sucker for anything that is storytelling related. The Forgotten Runes Wizard Cult.
Oh, I saw you talking about that.
Yeah.
NFT.
There's not, it's only, so it's 10,000. There are only 2,400 owners. So not a lot of people owning them, but they're little like 8-bit looking wizards and warlocks and like fantasy characters.
And they're all purchased, right? They've all been minted.
They've all been minted. They have this thing called the Book of Lore. They're basically trying to encourage people to create like this whole history behind these characters.
It's like loot.
Yes. Except I can see something here that looks interesting to me. And I can wrap my brain around it a little more. I like the abstract stuff, but this feels like you could get a lot of people into it. And I could just see all kinds of, my imagination gets going and I could start to see lots of ideas about how you might tell this story. But I encourage people to check out their site because I'm looking at it now. They have some really cool visualization stuff. Like they have this grid of all 10,000 characters kind of zoomed out, and you can zoom in and out of it and scroll. It's just fun to look at. And I'm excited to see how people start like generating stories around this content. I'm a sucker for that stuff. So that is something I was excited to come across.
I like that idea. It sort of appeals to the same vibe that Dungeons and Dragons had back in the day, where you create your own story. They give you scaffolding around it.
Yeah.
And then it's really up to you and whoever else you're playing with, right?
Yeah. And I think the fact that you get to participate in that world building, that's something that both as a someone who consumes stories in all forms, and as someone who creates stories, I've always wanted to get closer to the story and then enable people to get closer to the story. And this feels like something that does that.
Coming up with Abel Black might be an idea.
Yes, that stuff. Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. I did a zombie project back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, 2008 or 9. That was a community generated zombie film. That was our goal. We ended up making a book instead of a film. But I've talked to the guys that I worked on that with and said, like, man, if we had done this now with NFTs, it would have been so much easier to handle rights and
oh yeah,
community. Like it, that's the stuff I get so excited about with all this NFT stuff is the sort of shared collaboration and world building just feels huge. So those ones I was excited about. It's been a while since I've actually been excited about a project. When you get into this, you start like, oh, which project's doing well? I'll get one of those. I'll get one of these. But I miss actually getting passionate about, or just a little bit excited about it. And I'm not trying to pump Forgotten Runes. I've only looked at it a little bit, but when I saw it, it intrigued me. So we'll see what happens. And then I did do the Meka thing.
You buy them, right? This is sort of understood.
I did buy them. Yeah, I bought a couple of them.
And did you buy a Meka?
I did buy a Meka.
So you got the raffle.
I didn't. So this is crazy.
Oh, you bought it in secondary.
I bought it for 5 ETH.
Oh,
in the second before it revealed.
Is it a floor or no?
I sold it before it revealed. I started hearing the bad buzz, not the accusations. I just started hearing this negativity that we were talking about like, I don't know about these.
What'd you buy it for?
I bought it for 5 ETH and I sold it for 6.35 ETH.
So you did all right. You're going to be one of the winners of the
and I did, but I always advise people not to do that because I don't know. One thing
paper hands. Oh my gosh. This sounds like the opposite. And looking at your wallet, this sounds like the opposite.
It is the opposite of what I do almost all the time. But I don't know, something.
Yeah. Got to go with your gut.
Something about how high it was felt. Wrong. I just started getting, maybe it was just buyer's remorse. I don't know. But I was like, you know what? I almost sold it when it was at like 9. I don't know. Something just felt odd. And I was like, I got to get out of here. And my thought at that point was, I'll sell this. I'll make an ETH on this. And then when or 1.35, whatever it was. And then when it drops, because I knew it had to drop after
today,
then I'll just buy a floor and make up the difference.
That's right. Hey.
And then more bad buzz happened. And now I'm kind of like,
stay away from it. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to actually do I'm going to keep an eye on it because if they're I almost like if they're falsely accused and they can demonstrate that that's not the case, I'll totally go back in and support it just for that fact. But
okay.
I don't know.
So that was a short-term rental into your, yes. into your wallet, in and out.
I know people that just do that and I can't, my experience has been if I try and chase the oh, what's the trend and can I flip it? In the long run, I always lose because you're always waiting on someone else's behavior to drive what you do.
Yeah.
Whereas if I buy a project because I like it and I'm going to do what I'm going to do, regardless of like when I got the VFriends, I knew like I'm holding these. I'm just holding these until it's so compelling not to hold them or until it enables me to do something.
A couple times and your floor has fallen by 50%, although
it is.
If you look at the price of ETH being up, it's at least a 25% drop from.
Yeah, and I got all those things I bought all of them. I minted all of them except I think I have 14 VFriends. I minted all but 3. I bought the astronaut afterwards because I just loved the astronaut and I missed that guy.
Yeah.
But even then, I think I got the astronaut for like 1.5 or 2 ETH. I should actually check. I shouldn't say stuff I got to make sure I'm telling the truth here.
Okay, so I promised not to buy anything. I promised myself not to buy anything, but I did. And so and interestingly, I had looked at Sad Girl Bar last week.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like, nope, I've decided I'm not buying anything, but I would kind of like to support this. And then I was going to do it, but then I had to do a meeting, and and I didn't come back to it. And then I'm looking in my wallet, and someone had sent me one.
You said that.
I've got to figure out who it was. I don't know where it came from. But I'm happy. I was happy to get it.
That's awesome.
And then I was like, oh, but that's not the one I really wanted. I like the one that was sent to me, but I was like, oh, I was looking at this other one. So I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go back and I'll buy it. So then I'm supporting the project legitimately. Someone sent it to me, whoever sent it to me. I think I might know how it got in there, but I have to investigate. But either way,
I grabbed a couple of those too. Those are cool.
I just love the
artwork.
Like it's like the pen and ink style.
Yeah, I dig it.
Really like that. So, so that's in my wallet. I'm not pumping it. Although maybe people should check it out. I think it's just good art.
I think it's okay to say that, because if you like it,
I like it.
We know it's in your wallet.
I have it because I like it.
Yes. And
I plan to hold it. So the other thing, I did buy NFTs.
Okay.
So that's minting, I think, tomorrow. Well, it's minting somewhere around the 15th. And I was looking at it, and I was like, oh, this is kind of a cool concept. They're trying to create the sports team vibe. And then I was looking at it, and it's like, oh, like I could buy a mint pass on secondary. And I could, with that, they had the ones where you could buy 20 teams or you could buy 5 teams. And I started doing the math, and I'm like, okay, it's a little bit better to buy, I didn't want 20 teams. I wasn't going to spend that much. But I could do the 5 teams, and it would be better for me from a math standpoint. But so they pre-minted 1,000. So there's 1,000 out there. And the first 1,000 are the only ones that get to play in the first season. So there's a really quick, and then everyone else comes in. So, and then I'm thinking, well, geez, I could do it. It's going to cost me, if I just do the cost basis equivalent to buy them individually now versus getting the mint pass, it's going to be 50% higher. But then I'm like, when's the mint? The mint is 3 a.m. my time. So I'm like, oh, that made the decision. I'm buying the first 1,000. So now I kind of wanted this idea that I would have some that were available for the first 1,000.
Yeah.
For the first season. So I bought 2 of those. I don't know if I'll keep them or not, but I don't pay attention to projects very closely unless I own something. So I like sort of the vibe. I like what they were trying to do, and I just wanted to see what that's.
There's still some all the stuff we talked about before, I'm still big on, like Crypto Dads and World of Women. Those projects I'm just dig them. I did do some of the Solana stuff. I dipped my toes in the NFT stuff there, which I'm not super excited about. It doesn't seem.
We should maybe next week or the week after we'll bring someone in who's done a lot of Solana stuff, who's been collecting there, and just you guys can talk about it. I haven't done that yet. I just don't have the mind share to even think about it at the moment. I want to. I have looked at it a little bit, but I just haven't gone through the process of being ready to buy.
Yeah, I was more doing it from like we were talking about earlier, just seeing if the Solana hype was real in terms of performance.
And was it?
It's absolutely crazy fast. If you're used to Ethereum. And it's cheap, and it's
we're seeing this for a while. Then who knows? Is the transaction posted?
I think the first time I did something, I was like, wait, what? It's already done. How'd that happen? I like that the Phantom wallet shows your NFTs in your wallet. There's lots of just little UI things that are nice, but that's the speed thing is an issue, and that's a game changer, I think, eventually. But
I was just talking to Dandelion about this with Archipelago. They've got sort of these 4 differentiating features. And I was like, you've been talking a lot about speed, like you're optimizing the back end for speed, and you're optimizing the front end for speed, so that when the first thing they're building is like an Art Blocks Explorer, even before you can buy. So you'll be able to see Art Blocks items it'll render really quickly. Nice. So when you're when you're doing research and thinking about what you might want to buy, I was like, wow, that might actually be the best feature. Because trying to look at art blocks on OpenSea or actually any of the projects is terrible.
Yes, absolutely. That, and then the other issue with art blocks is because you have them you know, if I go to like the way OpenSea sorts them, it's part of the curated collection or the factory collection. So I'm looking for a specific, it's really hard to find the floor and look for just your, so I have so many freaking bookmarks in my Chrome to try and separate.
That's exactly
It'd be nice to get, we should get who is Matthew McAllister on here, because he's deep into art blocks, and he is, he got me into it early. I wish I would have gotten to it earlier and listened to him, because he's got like all the he's got some big pieces.
Yeah, and he participates, I think, in every mint, or he tries to.
And he's also a coder, so he keeps threatening to actually like go on there and try and do a mint. But I hear the wait list is quite
very popular now.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody, this has been fun. Thank you for coming and watching today. We're going to try to do these live Wednesdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We still haven't been able to work that out logistically, but we will do that at some point. I'm Brett Kinsell. I'm Creatorius Rex. Scott, thank you for joining me.
Yep.
We'll be back next week. Until then, happy hunting.